I'm sure everybody is aware to some extent, some extent of what happened at the Olympics. It should come as no surprise that the times that we live, the increase in not only demonic activity, but we're seeing the increase of the embracing of Satanism, as well as we're seeing a lot more on the um, paganist side of things. Paganism, of course, go all the way back biblical times, of course, but coming all the way to this point, we're seeing more and more of the, not necessarily because throughout history we've seen the secret embracing of this stuff, but now we're starting to see it just put on full display, because right now Satan is on display, as this title is so Frenchly worded. And he's walking the catwalk. He doesn't need to do anything in secret anymore. He doesn't need to hide anything anymore. He's able to do this because people are embracing this stuff. They're actively embracing it and joining in on this type of stuff. And so it's just becoming normal, and it's becoming even bigger on the grand stage. I mean, we've seen stuff when it comes to the different areas of music, as well as sporting events, and all these different types of shows that are being put on. And it's demonic. Everything is demonic now. Everything has some type of satanic symbolism to it. And it's just because they're mocking the world. We can do this. We can put it out there. We don't have to worry about this type of stuff anymore. So about 2 months ago, I did a video on the torch lighting ceremony / trailer that the Olympics put out. And so I figured this would be a good starting point for tonight to at least go back and see what's going on here. So right off the bat, we're already hit. I'm not going to play the video. I'm not playing any videos tonight just due to the fact that the Olympics is going hardcore on blocking anybody who plays videos. So it's just going to be some images. But yeah, what we got is the Olympic Games here. This was back in April. This was like their trailer for it. And the video that they put is basically what they claim is a priestess praying to Apollo and Zeus. And you can see right there, there's a little bit of it, a clip of it. It says, Apollo, god of the sun and the idea of light, send your rays and give the sacred torch for the hospitable city of Paris. And you, Zeus, give peace to all peoples on earth and wreath the winners of the sacred race. And so right off the bat, they had no problem in showing what the Olympics is truly about. As much as people like to take paganistic stuff from the past and try and, modernize, we got rid of the pagan stuff and we just do this. There's no getting rid of where it originated. And I think that's something that I've spent a lot of time making sure that people are thinking about as they go across their life. There's no way to remove something if that something was born out of that evil thing. So you can't do that stuff. It's something that I hear all the time. Well, it's like yoga, as long as I'm not doing the specific yoga stuff along with it, and I'm just stretching in yoga poses. Well, it's still the same thing. You're still putting yourself in that position of being a demon antenna. You are attracting people to that because that's where it was birthed out of, was that idea. So you can't ditch that stuff. You have to be able to recognize it and just full scale, just cut it out. That's part of our life. You can't compromise. You can't, chew the meat, spit out the fat type of thing. It's just, you throw it out. And this is really where all this stuff goes. So if you guys don't know, talking about Apollo, Apollo is basically short for Apollyon, which is the Greek name, as we would read in Hebrew, for Abaddon. Now, where do we get that from? Why is this important? Well, if we go to Revelation, we will see why. Revelation 9, 1 through 11, it says, then the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to the earth. To him was given the key to the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and smoke arose out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. So the sun and the air were darkened because of the smoke of the pit. Then out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth, and to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. They were commanded not to harm the grass of the earth, or any green thing, or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. Verse 5, and they were not given authority to kill them, but to torment them for 5 months. Their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes a man. In those days, men will seek death and will not find it. They will desire to die, and death will flee from them. The shape of the locusts was like horses prepared for battle. On the heads were crowns of something like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men. They had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. And they had breastplates like the breastplate of iron. And the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots with many horses running into battle. They had tails like scorpions, and there were stings in their tails. Their power was to hurt men 5 months. And here we go, verse 11. And they had a king over them, the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, but in Greek he has the name Apollyon. So we can see here that who they're praying to is king of the abyss and of the locusts, who will arise in Daniel's 70th week. Fascinating. It's almost like it was grounded in that, because it was, in fact. We can kind of go back a little bit in history, and it's I sometimes get pushback on this, but I think it's important to understand that when we hear about mythology and mythological gods and stuff like that, it's not just for the most part, it's not just some random thing that has been written about as some type of story and just gone through time. I actually believe that the gods, the mythological gods, as they are called, did walk the earth, but they were in fact Nephilim. And there's a reason why they were worshipped as gods, because they were stronger and bigger and taller and had more power and were able to do those things than normal humans. And so they were worshipped as gods. And so I believe that when we read about mythological beings and stuff, obviously there's a lot of, what's real and what's not, that there is some actual truth to these beings, these Nephilim beings walking the earth and being worshipped as gods. So I think that's a key aspect. And so something that I think Christians need to understand is that the Olympics has always been pagan. There was never any transition out of it. Again, when something is born of paganism, you can't just get rid of it, because that's what it is. It's the same thing that I always talk about when it comes to music, from like Hillsong and Bethel and Elevation and stuff like that, is those songs were written about a different Jesus. And so just because you're taking it and playing it in your church and saying, I'm singing it to the right Jesus, no, it was born with a different intention. I used this when I talked to Spencer Smith about this stuff. It's the same thing. Like if, his name just Elton John. There we go. It's the same thing with like Elton John. Well, when he writes a love song, it's about his gay lover. Just because you're singing it to your like a man singing it to his woman or something like that, doesn't take away who that song was actually written to. And so it's the same thing here. So the first recorded Olympic Games was back in 776 BC, with the belief that it actually went back further than that. And the point of the games was to honor Zeus by displaying athletics in his honor. They took place, of course, in Zeus's sanctuary of Olympia. Often sacrifices and gifts were given in the name of Zeus, and the athletes took an oath before Zeus's statue, basically swearing upon Zeus that they will follow the rules of the games set at that time. Even the torch lighting is an homage to Prometheus, who stole the fire from the gods and gave it to the humans. And that's why they do that with the torch lighting. So there's nothing for us as believers within the Olympics. It is 100% a pagan event, has been. That's where it was born, and it is today. And we're going to cover some of that stuff as we look at this, where it goes, yeah, that sure is a pagan event going on. So it shouldn't surprise us, honestly, when we constantly see satanic and paganism being all swaddled up, tied up, wrapped up within the Olympics. I wish I could say it was just, hey, just get some people together for the athletic games, but ultimately there's a lot more to it. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few of this stuff as we go along. We're going to start here. It's always good when they have to apologize. It says organizers apologize for church groups criticized alleged Last Supper parody during opening ceremony. It says organizers of the Paris Olympics have apologized for what some critics described as a parody of the Last Supper during the lavish opening ceremonies on Friday. The scene featured drag artists and dancers. That's putting it mildly. I don't know if anybody actually watched it, but it was just everybody and their mom was gay on this thing, and was widely criticized by the Catholic Church and Christian groups. The French Catholic Church said the festivities included scenes of derision and mockery of Christianity. There was clearly never an intention to show disrespect to any religious group. Paris 2024 spokesperson Anne Descamps told a news conference on Sunday. On the contrary, I think we tried to celebrate community tolerance. We believe the ambition was achieved. If people have taken any offense, we're of course really sorry. I always find it funny that it's about tolerance, and their version of celebrating tolerance is the embracing and shoving a spotlight onto paganism. That's their version of tolerance, which should tell us as Christian that tolerance shouldn't ever be something that we seek, especially since I don't believe, and I'm not a Bible scholar, but I don't believe Jesus ever said tolerate people. Just throwing it out there. No, we are to love and to make sure that we can help correct. Nothing about tolerating. Yeah. And tolerate does not mean love. They're not the same thing. Actually, love coincides with truth. You can't have love without truth. You can't have truth without love. And the truth should tell us that whatever they're doing, according to this, all their drag queen and stuff, is not true. And so tolerating that is not love. Actually, love and truth would be telling us to correct. So again, nothing about tolerance. And so it says, while the scene has come under criticism, the opening ceremony was also widely praised, with some people pointing out that the scene was more reminiscent of other works like The Feast of the Gods by Johann Rottenhammer and Jan Bruegel. Yeah. I don't have the picture. I'm not going to put it up if you want to look it up. But yeah, there's a painting called The Feast of the Gods, which kind of looks similar to what they were going for. Says Thomas Jolly, the director of the opening ceremony, insisted that the Last Supper, a mural painted by Renaissance artist Leonardo da Vinci, who is a devout Gnostic, by the way, just keep that in mind, wasn't the inspiration behind the scene in an interview with CNN affiliates on Sunday. Dionysus arrives at the table because he is the Greek god of celebration, and that sequence is called festivity. The god of wine, which is also a French jewel and father of Sequana, the goddess linked to the river scene. The idea was to create a big pagan party. See, they admit it. A big pagan party in link with the god of Mount Olympus. See, they just flat out admit it. And you will never find in me or my work any desire of mocking anybody. So they're talking about Dionysus, which we're not going to do a history lesson on that guy, but if you want to go and look it up, he's basically an androgynous, genderless being who was known for the protection of divination, which again, if you go back to Deuteronomy, I don't have the verses pulled up, go back to Deuteronomy, it talks about don't practice such things because they are an abomination to the Lord. So everything about this is demonic, is evil, and it's pagan. Everything about it. Even the excuse that they give does not fit according to Christian beliefs. Should that surprise anybody, being that this is taking place at a pagan birthed event called the Olympics? It really shouldn't. If you guys don't know, this is basically what they're talking about because it kind of looks similar to what's going on with that. Again, this isn't an argument of were they actually making fun of the Last Supper or were they not. So this has nothing to do with that. This just has to do with the fact of it's rooted in paganism, and their excuse even has to do with paganism. So either way, it's not good. And then, of course, there's Dionysus. I'm only going to put that up for a second because I don't think anybody really wants to look at that thing. So ultimately, that's what we see going on when it comes to that little thing. Now, that was just a tiny segment. That wasn't even the worst of what they did. I'm not going to show some of the other stuff that they did, but it was just the entire thing. I'm sitting there looking at this going, how does this have anything to do with sports? It doesn't. It has nothing to do with sports at all. What do we got going on here? Airborne Moose, is there some pagan significance with the supernova this fall in the constellation Corona Borealis with the Olympics portrayal of Dionysus? Man, I got nothing for that one. I'd have to actually look into that one. Yeah, I'm sorry, I got nothing for that one. I'll really have to look into that one. Let's see here. Y'all are ridiculous. Design and Deb question: could you say that the Olympics were first between the Nephilim and later became between the humans? From the research that I've done on it, it was more of humans doing it in honor of the Nephilim. Could the Nephilim or the gods, however you want to put it, the mythological gods, could they have been involved in those games? Maybe. From my understanding, however, again, remember, they're talking about how it kind of, the first recorded one was 776 BC. Maybe the Nephilim were doing it before that, but from my understanding, from that time on, it was humans doing it in honor of the gods. And so they would bring sacrifices and gifts, swear upon the statue of Zeus, and so on and so forth. So maybe beforehand, they took place. So something to think about there. But yeah, from my research, I haven't seen anything that verifies that the gods actually partook in the games. So something to maybe look into. And if you come up with an answer, let me know. For sure. I'm always interested in seeing what comes out of stuff like this, because it connects a lot of dots when it comes to like mystery religion and how we got to the point that we're in and stuff like that. All right, so let's keep going with some of the stuff that took place. Now, this next part is not pretty, but keep in mind, a lot of what was going on with the mythological gods had to do with a lot of things like fertility and different types of activities in that area of stuff. And that does not stop even in modern day Olympics. It doesn't stop at all. So much so that we actually get stuff like this. With intimacy ban lifted, Paris 2024 distributing more than 200,000 condoms to Olympians. Yeah, just never stop, guys. It's always been this way. Paris 2024 Olympics organizers are preparing for an unofficial 33rd sport with the Summer Games kickoff in just over a week. French organizers in charge of first aid said in March that about 200,000 condoms for men, 20,000 for women, and 10,000, whatever those are, will be made available to the 10,500 Paris Olympians. Yikes. Yeah, there are slightly conflicting reports over the exact numbers, as the director of the Olympic Village said that 300,000 would be distributed. Either way, the figure is more than 160,000 at the Tokyo 2021 Olympics. And it just keeps on going from there. We don't need to look into that. And that's always been a part of the Olympic Games, the debauchery and the sexual sin. And it's just... Again, when you go back and study some of the stuff with the Greek gods, I'll give you an example. I talked about this on the End Times New Age series. You get into things like the Divine Mother and Child. Well, one of the representations of those was Sybil and Attis. And you look into that, and their entire story has to do with Attis, wanting to be intimate with his mother figure and that type of stuff. And eventually what follows is he castrates himself, and it brings up the tree, which actually plays a part going back to the Christmas tree with Nimrod and stuff like that. And it's all surrounded about this sexual sin and everything. And so the Olympic Games are also the same thing. And you actually get it from this, where it says 300,000 free condoms in a pleasure campaign, how Paris 2024 is bringing sexy back to the Olympics. Really? That's wonderful. But yeah, it's also known as things about like the sex mad games, and all the people having a different woman every night, and so on and so forth. And so that all that was taking place in Paris, and it's always taken place at the Olympic Games ever since, or all the years prior. It's that pagan root. And we understand that the deep root of sexual sin is always rooted in things like talk about the Luciferian cabal and what they do. A lot of the secret societies, it's not just torturous stuff, but a lot of it has to do with sexual exploitation, because that is one of the roots of Satan's assault on the earth with sin. And so we just continue to see more and more when it comes to this as well. Now, something else that I saw, a lot of people had some questions regarding it, was the bull and calf statue that were there as well. And I'll be honest, when I first saw this too, I was like, wow, that's right on the nose. That's pretty obvious that they would do that. But I did discover, and there's more to this, but I did discover that that's an actual statue in France. The statue bull and calf, Trocadero, I don't know, Paris, France. I believe that thing came up in 1937. I think that thing was erected. And so, yeah, that is an actual statue that's going on there. Now, I don't think that that's the actual statue. I think maybe that's a representation, or it could be the actual one. I don't know for sure. Either way, what they're doing is they're playing homage to the statue that's already there. But there's always a but when it comes to this. As we know, this does play a part going back to the unholy pagan trinity. Why is that? It's a bull, first of all. We'll start with the bull. The bull is representation of Nimrod. He was, of course, known as the great hunter. He was uplifted as a god because of his immense strength, where he was able to kill a bull with his bare hands. And so he was always represented as the bull. The calf, as we know, the golden calf from the biblical stories as well. So could this real statue have anything to do with that? And, of course, was on display at the Olympics that year. I tend to say yes. That's my understanding from historical stuff, as well as all the other stuff displayed in the country of France, as well as at the Olympics, that I tend to believe that it has everything to do with the biblical history of Nimrod and the golden calf worship and all that stuff. So I believe, even though this is supposedly, that's what the excuses that we're getting, is a representation of the actual statue in France, I do believe that even the actual statue has some significance when it comes to the pagan history back then. So something to think about on that one if you guys want to look. Another thing that I saw, which is an actual statue again in France, is the Louvre pyramid. That's not how you pronounce that. I know I'm butchering all of France. I'm gonna have all the French. Well, French, yeah, they don't have the spine to call me out on anything. They're too polite. Sorry, a little French joke there. Everybody makes fun of the French, right? But they made sure that the torch guy, you can't really see him in this picture, but the torch guy ran right by the pyramid, which, again, if you want to go back in history, talk about the Tower of Babel, it was not a skyscraper like we know them today. It was, in fact, a pyramid. And that's why when all of them were scattered after God scrambled their languages and scattered, they took that same mystery religion with them all over the place. And what did they build? Temples. You look, or pyramid temples. You look all over the place. Egypt and Bosnia and the Aztec temples and all these stuff. It's all about pyramids. Everything's about pyramids. Freemasonry adopted the pyramid as well, because that all goes back to the Tower of Babel. So even though that is already in France, it just is another ongoing push of paganism, as they showed the torch guy, which I believe was a drag queen. Shocking, because the 3 torchbearers were drag queens. Ran right by it, because we got to see the pyramid, right? That's always part of it. Now, this one's interesting. Did you guys catch the pale horse? Yeah. This one's just too on the nose for me personally. Yeah, it shows a single rider on a single pale horse. First of all, he was on a mechanical one going across the river, and then it shows the rider actually on a pale horse. Do I really have to explain this one? Death followed him wherever he went. Yeah, that just seemed a little too on the nose for me on that one. Then we got celebrities that were at this event, and none other than Snoop Dogg, D-O-double-G, whatever. I don't know. I thought he was Snoop Lion or something. I don't know. I can't keep track. I mean, it's like the Prince, the artist formerly known as the artist formerly known as. Anyways, I'm getting off track. Snoop Dogg was there representing his gold Baphomet chain. What's up, homie? Yeah, his gold chain with a crystal Baphomet. Had to make his presence known, put it front and center on that. Oh my goodness. It's all right there. It's all right there. Just display front and center, put it all on display for everybody to see. Then another one that I saw was a very short snippet, a snort. What was that cat? Snarf? Is it Snarf? The cat? The cartoon cat? I can't remember. I'm getting off track again. But the short snippet, there we go. It zooms by the Statue of Liberty that's all beat up and destroyed. I can't really get a decent picture. I was going to show the video, but again, I don't want to get blocked. But it shows a massive hole in the cheek. The crown is falling apart. It's all beat up. It's rusted. It's got holes all over the place. And yeah, I find that fascinating that they put the Statue of Liberty in there, and it doesn't have anything to do with just the regular Statue of Liberty. They actually had to show it all beat up and torn apart. Well, we know what's coming to America. I wonder if they're just letting us know, just like they did with that Civil War movie and the Leave the World Behind movie and stuff. Everything is about destroying America all of a sudden, which, by the way, the Statue of Liberty in itself is actually a pagan statue as well. It's an androgynous being, first of all. Then you can go back and you can actually look at the real statue of Attis, again, Sybil and Attis, back in the day, and it actually is an androgynous looking being, and it has the same sun crown, which has to do with Gnostic enlightenment and everything. Again, it's all representation of this entirely. So those are a few things that I saw on that front. Now, something that came from it that I think we should pay attention to has to do with the guy who put it on. Now, if you guys don't know, the guy who put it on is Thomas Jolly, which we just read his name in one of the articles. But this is a tweet from somebody that says, outrageous. Meet Thomas Jolly, the artist behind the Satanic and anti-Christian Paris Olympics opening ceremony. A 42-year-old Jewish man who supports Israel and Zionism. It's always a Jew or Zionist. Something else that I saw, you can find them all over on social media and videos and stuff, but this is another one I saw. Somebody posted these two pictures. It says, I checked into who put the Last Supper Olympic blank together because I had a hunch. Yeah, he's a Jew. And then posted the picture of that. What we're witnessing is another event that is driving more anti-Semitism and anti-Jew hatred. And this is something that we're seeing an increase on from all sides of the coin. I mean all sides, left, right, and even the center. Is they're all pointing fingers at the Jews. Everybody's pointing fingers at the Jews. Everybody's blaming the Zionists. All the wartime stuff we see going on. Well, a lot of Americans and so, well, it's, if we just stop supporting Israel, they're the ones trying to get us all wrapped up in wars and all this type of stuff. We see all this stuff even when it comes to the Olympics now, where it's the Zionists. We see, all the political stuff out there. Again, spend some time. Just take about 30 minutes to an hour. Go to notorious right-wing websites, Zero Hedge, InfoWars, even somewhere like Gateway Pundit, Redacted, and all these other places. Go to some of those websites. Take a look at the comments. See who everybody's blaming. It's always the Jews. It's always the Zionists. It's, again, what this person said. It's always the Jews. It's always a Jew or Zionist. It's always them. And it's right, left, and center. It's all anti-Semitism. Now we're seeing it from the church as well. We're seeing it from the Catholic Church, where they're saying it again. There's Catholics out there saying it was a Jew that is disrespecting the Last Supper. We're seeing it from the Christian side. It's a Jew that was doing this. And this is just more of that driving force against the Jews. People are seeking out every opportunity to place blame on the Jews and the Zionists. Remember, the Jews are human and are currently dry bones without life. And so they are going to be doing the same things that we are doing in this world, sinful, evil things. They're not above anybody right now in that aspect of things. But that's the reason for the time of Jacob's trouble. It's going to be the time when God turns his attention back to them to bring the Jews back and give life to those dry bones when that finally comes to happen. But right now, we're witnessing what the scriptures exactly tell us is going to happen. The world is going against them. The world is hating them. They're turning their back on them. They're pointing the fingers at them. They despise the Jews. And we're seeing that tenfold. I mean, increasingly. And it's absolutely nuts. Again, if you don't believe me, go to some of those websites. Take a look at what the comments are putting on there. It's all about anti-Zionism, I'm telling you. Keep in mind, and I discussed this on Saturday's Thigh War Part 2. There's a difference between biblical Zionism, which as true Christ followers, we are Christian Zionists, as opposed to political Zionists, which are in fact evil people wrapped up with things like the global cabal and the Rothschilds and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. Split those two. We got to make sure that we split those. That's a big, big difference to keep in mind. So something to remember on that front. The time for them to turn to the Lord is coming. It's not here yet. Of course, the church has got to be removed first, because then we can see God slowly turning his attention to the Jews now, to Israel now. But he's still keeping an eye on the church right now because we're still here. Once we're taken out of here, he's going back to the Jews, and that's when he goes Old Testament again. And so we'll see that stuff.